Alright lads, so I am going to try and give you the most balanced video on the internet as to why the dating market is so messed up today. Now, I'm very much team men, right? I'm a men's self-improvement YouTuber, let's say, call it that. I'm in the manosphere, in the red pill space. Even though I've criticized a lot of those other content creators, I'm in that space. I'm here to help and touch on men's issues. But on this side of the internet, we love to criticize and point the finger, blame it solely at women and the feminist types, and a lot of women love to point the blame at men and say they need to do better. And I think we need to have a serious discussion around this, a serious, balanced, nuanced take, because this is an incredibly serious issue. You look at the depopulation crisis going on, right? The birth rates are plummeting, and within 20 years, this is the depopulation crisis is all we're going to be talking about and we're going to be trying to solve. So it's a serious issue, and if we're just continually pointing the blame at one another, at the other sex and so on, and we're not having a proper adult discussion, we're never really going to come up with solutions. So this is my attempt to come up with a balanced perspective. Now, there's many reasons for this. There is many reasons as to why we're in this situation. But for the sake of the video and the length of the video, we're going to narrow it down to 3 key aspects. Those 3 key aspects are birth control pill, feminism, and dating apps. So they're the 3 major ones why we reach this point where the dating market is so screwed. And especially with regards to dating apps. So now at the moment what's happening is so many women have access to so many of the guys that they really desire. Right, this is not back in pre-1960s, okay? This is not a time where there's no birth control, they didn't have that sexual liberation, and there's no dating apps. So they're kind of stuck having to be with the local guy, with the local average guy. And they couldn't really be very promiscuous, that's way too risky. But now with dating apps, women don't have to settle with the average guy. They don't have to settle with the average guy that's in their local town or neighborhood, because they can go on an app and they can find a higher value guy or more attractive guy that's 20 miles away or 30 miles away, and they'd rather do that than settle with the local guy. So less and less of the guys today are getting any action or getting any relationships, and the average guy is kind of being left behind in the wake and left to struggle. Now here's the thing with the average guy, and this is what a lot of women, one of the women's solutions to this is, well, men just have to get better, which in many ways is ridiculous, and in many ways it's kind of true. See, if you're the average guy back in the 50s, you know, you just had an average job and could take care of a family, and that was kind of it. You just go to work, come home, and yada yada. In today's world, average isn't going to cut it. You can't just be average. You can't just have an average job and that's it, come home, do nothing. You need to have something about you. Now, I've coached many of these guys, and I'll say to them, okay, they'll be complaining about women and their standards and everything else, and I'll ask them, you know, do you work out? And they'll say no. I was like, okay, do you have any interests or hobbies? They say video games. Okay, all right. Do you ever approach a girl? You ever approached a woman? Do you go up to them regularly? They're like, no, never. Well, look, you need to step up a little bit. You see, women set the standards, right? Women do set the standards for the dating market. they set the requirements, and the majority of men are going to step up to those requirements. They're just going to do that. But if you haven't kept up with the times to some degree, you're going to struggle. If you're just an average, boring guy with no interest, no hobbies, no ambition, you don't really have the right to complain. And that's where women say, you know, the average guy is just boring, just doesn't have anything about him, doesn't have no zest for life. In many cases, this is true. But if you are that average guy, and at the same time, you know, you go and you take care of your appearance, and you go to the gym, and you got a hobby or two and an interest, and your wage is okay, and maybe you earn 30 or 40 grand a year, and you're not getting any action, then yes, you have a right to complain. Because you should be a good catch. And as much as women's standards have gone up, and it's understandable why women's standards have gone up, and I tell men all the time, I say, you've got to keep your standards high, so why shouldn't I tell women they have to keep their standards high? That's only fair. But I tell guys, you've got to keep your standards high, but stay in the realms of reality. You can't be delusional. And there is no doubt about it that there's a hell of a lot more delusional women out there now, and they believe that they are better than what they are, and they deserve better than what they're probably going to get. And there's a few reasons for this. The sisterhood, you know, women in general, feminism, female friends, they all have to do this. They all have to tell their friends they're so great, they're perfect just the way they are. You go, girl, you're a getter, you know, you're a 10, and all this. That feeds into a woman's ego. But again, on the flip side, for balance sake, also men do this. Men contribute to this problem. And it's usually the faults of the Chads and the Tyrones. You see women, you see, for the sake of the video, and you understand this, right? If you've got a girl who's a 6 out of 10, let's say she's a 6, maybe a 7. You know, the guys who are 8s, 9s, 10s, in terms of attractiveness, they'll entertain those type of women from the odd night from time to time. You know, the really beautiful ones, they're not available that night, so they get the access and they get the easy lay. And what happens is these women, because they have every now and then, they have a night with someone like that, the Chad and the Tyrone, they think that, well, that's their level, that's their standard. And so that's contributing to their inflated, delusional beliefs about their levels of attractiveness. So the Chads and Tyrones definitely hold some responsibility in that regard. So that's where men are also contributing. But here's the thing as well. So I mentioned women set the standards for dating, right? Women do set the standards. But they've increased their standards for their levels of initial attraction and their initial requirements, but they've lowered their standards for those type of guys for sexual access. The women today are much more promiscuous than ever before. The ones, especially the more beautiful they're getting now. So they're asking men to keep up their side of the bargain and improve actually on their side, but they've not kept up their side of the bargain. So what did men really want? Generally they want a woman who's respectable, who's kind, who has low body count, ideally 0. Yeah, she's classy, you can trust her and so on. But what guys are finding, they're jumping through these hoops and they're finding that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. They're not getting what was on the packet. They're realizing these women are not what they used to be. They have higher body counts than ever before. They're arrogant, they're entitled. You know, they've been with Chads and Tyrones. They're, what do you call it? They're alpha widowed and whatnot, and Men have been simping after them and been in their DMs all the time, every day, and approaching them all the time and telling them how beautiful and amazing they are just for existing. And they're realizing that these women are not nice and they got high body counts. And this is why I tell guys, look, women set the standards, women set the levels and the rules, but the way a lot of modern women are, you don't have to jump through those hoops all the time, and then juice often isn't worth the squeeze. Now of course there are many good women out there, many beautiful women, and they have low body counts and they're nice and respectable, but they're becoming rarer and rarer. So I tell guys, look, if you're jumping through all these crazy hoops just to get a little reward, well, you're technically you're a simp, and you're playing into a woman's frame. You don't have to go through that many hoops. You should be taking care of yourself, yes. You should be in shape, yes. Take care of your appearance. You should have some hobbies. Ideally, not always doing these things just for the sake of women, but for yourself and everything else. But of course, women are a big motivating factor. But if you're ticking off these basic general things, then you should be an attractive partner to people. But this is again where women need to get back into reality a little bit. The average guy who's doing reasonably well for himself, let's say he's on 30, 40, maybe 50k a year, that's pretty good actually, right? And he's in shape and everything else. God, that would make so many of these women happy. But they have this idea, again, this entitlement, this sense of delusion that you have to be on 100k a year minimum and 6 foot tall and 8 foot penis and 6 foot. It's crazy. It's crazy, some of the standards. Just because they can get a bit of access to the Chads and the Tyrones every now and then. And they're looking past so many actually decent guys that, you know, not on the highest, craziest levels, right? It's silly. It's getting a bit silly at times. So you can see where men have played their part, especially the more attractive ones, and all the simps as well at the other end of it, always telling these women how amazing they are just for existing and whatnot. We need to take some responsibility, give our fellow men slap over their heads for being in the DMs and subscribing to these women's OnlyFans accounts or whatever it is, and the good-looking guys, stop entertaining women that are clearly not as attractive as you, right? Don't entertain them for a night. It's not good for you, it's not good for the women, it's not good for the society. We should be calling that out. We should be calling out promiscuous behavior from women and men. It's degenerate. It's not ideal. You can do things in a better way. I'm not saying you have to be in relationships. That's the only time you should have sex. No, but you can do things in a more classy, respectable way. Women need to look at the bigger picture. You can't all be with top 1% guys. Even mathematically, that just isn't going to work out, right? I don't think we're going to go down. I don't think we're going to go down to a polyamorous society. I don't think we're all going to be sharing top 1% guys. Mind you, I wouldn't be surprised if they start pushing for that. But that's really, it's not going to happen anytime soon, that's for sure. You're passing up a lot of good guys just because hypergamy is on steroids. But guys, we are not also as well, guys, we're not going back to the past. We're not going back to 1950s and before. The standards have changed. That's just the way it is. You can't just sit around, go to a bare minimum job, sit around and have no hobbies, no interests, be a boring guy, right, and just expect to find a really good, attractive woman. It's not really going to work. You do have to step up a little bit more than what was previous. I think I'm lost here. It's just the first time I've come through this place shooting a video. I'll find my way. It's not too big. But that's balance. It's not the full picture. It's not a full bird's eye view of the whole situation, but it's definitely something. And like I said, we need adults in this conversation. We need to sit and be honest with ourselves as men, and women need to be honest with themselves as well. I mean, the women need red pill just as much as men, maybe even more. They need to understand the nature, what they're attracted to, the downsides of giving in to their nature and their desires and what they're attracted to as well, right? They need it as much as we do, because here's another thing that women have failed at, modern women generally speaking, is they've cashed in on their best years by basically trying to have it all, their cake and eat it, and sleep around with the Chads and Tyrones, right? That's what they're cashing in on, when really they're cashing on their most valuable years, when they're young, they're at their most beautiful, at the most fertile, with the most energy and so on. That's when they should be cashing in, trying to find the best long-term partner, the best man that they can find to settle down with. That's what their peak years are about. Not about going around partying, being with the Chads, and then working on their career and then trying to settle down with a beta provider later on in life. That's a big mistake. So women need a reality check and to take the red pill themselves. But yeah, I'd love to get your opinion on this, guys. We can definitely add to this conversation. I'll add to this video. I've been obsessed with this topic for a few years now, and yeah, let's get into it. I'd love to hear your opinions.